Welcome back to Blind Truth. Today, we're diving into the mysterious world of abandoned places to uncover hidden gems. As we explore, remember, treasures aren't always gold and jewels. Sometimes they're the stories waiting to be discovered. Let's embark on this thrilling journey together as we reveal 20 treasures found in abandoned places. Number 20. Mid-19th century blanket. Loren Kritzer was going through a very hard time. After a car accident ruined his career and health, he ended up living in a small shack on the edge of Lena Valley in California, surviving on just a few $100s a month. The accident caused an infection that led to the loss of his foot. It was a terrible period in his life. However, he discovered something amazing that changed everything. One day, while watching an episode of Antiques Roadshow, he saw a man from Arizona with an old Navajo blanket that was valued at around $500,000. Kritzer realized that he had a blanket that looked very similar, hidden away in his closet. Curious, he fetched his blanket and compared it to the one on TV. He hoped it might be worth a few $1,000s if he was lucky. His family and several antique dealers didn't think it was worth much. But when Kritzer took the blanket to an auctioneer, everything changed. The auctioneer recognized its value. The blanket was put up for auction and sold for $1.5 million. With this money, Kritzer bought a home. Number 19. Treasure in a piano. If you have a lot of gold, where's the best place to keep it? In the bank, a shoebox, or under your bed? How about inside a piano? Well, that's exactly what someone did. An old piano was given to a school, and when a technician was fixing it, he found more than 9,900 gold coins. The coins were hidden in 7 cloth packages and a leather purse, all stashed under the keyboard of this ordinary upright piano. No one knows who put the gold there or who originally owned the piano. It's a real mystery. Number 18. Metal detector hoard in British Field. A couple in northeast Somerset, UK, had a fun date night using their metal detectors in a field. They were searching for buried treasure and found a big surprise. They discovered a large stash of old coins, including those from King Harold I and William the Conqueror. This treasure dates back to the last Anglo-Saxon king of Britain, just before the Norman invasion of 1066, so it's really old. The treasure needs to be checked by experts from the British Museum. There are rules about who owns the treasure and what needs to be done with it. But in the end, the couple could make a lot of money from selling the treasure, even after sharing it with the landowner and others. Number 17. Treasure trove of Mayan artifacts. Chichen Itza, located on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, is one of the best preserved ancient Mayan sites. It was a major city from the 7th to the 10th century CE and held great importance in Mayan culture and history. At the center of Chichen Itza is a large pyramid, thought to be a temple for the god Kukulkan. This pyramid is perfectly aligned with the sun during the spring and autumn equinoxes, creating a shadow that looks like a serpent moving down the steps. Chichen Itza also has a large ball court where ancient Mesoamerican ball games were played in the sacred cenote, a natural sinkhole used for sacrificial offerings. In 1988, it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is now one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Beneath Chichen Itza, a hidden cave system holds a vast collection of Mayan artifacts. Hundreds of items used in rituals, like incense burners and offerings to the gods, were discovered there, all perfectly preserved. Number 16. 1,000-year-old gold coins. In 2013, a major discovery was made in Jerusalem at the famous Temple Mount Hill. This discovery is called the Awful Treasure. It includes 36 gold coins and a large gold medallion that are about 1,400 years old. This find is very exciting because it tells us a lot about international trade. The discovery dates back to the Persian conquest of Jerusalem in 614 CE. The coins come from the reigns of various Byzantine emperors from the 4th to the 7th century CE. The gold wasn't hidden or buried properly, so the person who left it may have met an unfortunate fate. The medallion is especially significant because it has Jewish symbols engraved on it, like a 7-branched menorah, a shofar, and a Torah scroll. This makes the discovery important for understanding Jewish history in the city. Number 15. Buried Ferrari Dino. Imagine finding a car buried underground. It sounds strange because cars are big and hard to hide. But even more surprising, this wasn't just any car, it was a Ferrari. In February 1978, a Ferrari Dino 246 GTS was discovered buried in a yard in Los Angeles. Here's the backstory. The car was bought in October 1974, and its owner reported it stolen in December the same year. No one knew what happened to it until it was accidentally found 4 years later, buried in a garden. Investigators found that someone had tried to wrap the Ferrari in plastic before burying it, maybe to protect it from damage. This suggests that the person who buried it planned to dig it up later. But why was it buried in the first place? Was it an insurance scam or a crazy prank? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 14. Barn clear out in Connecticut. Everyone enjoys cleaning out old stuff and making a trip to the dump. It can be a fun day, but imagine if you accidentally threw away some priceless paintings without realizing it. According to many stories online, this happens quite often. In this story, some people cleaned out a barn in Connecticut and unknowingly threw away a lot of valuable artworks. These artworks were by an obscure artist who died in 2016. He left behind many items that could be seen as either junk or treasure. The artist was so unknown that no one even recognized him at first. The person who found the art had to do a lot of detective work to discover that the artist was Francis Hines, an expressionist known for wrapping objects and buildings. Determining the value of art can be tricky. Who decides what something is worth? If someone sees an item as trash, is it really trash, even if others think it has value? Is the worth of something real, or is it just a concept created by wealthy people to keep their riches? This remains a mystery. Number 13. $1 million baseball cards. In 2015, some urban explorers found a huge stash of sports cards in an abandoned building in Detroit. The pile was enormous, full of cards from many sports featuring stars from the 1980s and 1990s. However, despite what was reported by the Daily Mail in the UK, there probably weren't any rare or valuable cards among them. It seems there was a misunderstanding between the US and the UK about the value of the cards. Most of the cards were just many copies of the same ones printed over and over again, so they weren't rare. Even though the warehouse was filled with pallets and boxes containing millions of cards, making it an interesting find, it wasn't particularly valuable. The explorers took some cool photos among the remnants of a different era. Like much of Detroit, especially after the 2008 crash, this warehouse is a relic of the city's past. It's a symbol of the waste and decay left behind by big businesses that abandoned the area. Number 12. Treasure under the stairs. A guy on Reddit shared a long story that most people might not find interesting. He was cleaning out his grandparents' home in Tennessee after they passed away and left it to him. While cleaning, he removed an old rug from a closet in the bedroom and found a metal disc in the stone floor. The disc was actually the cover of a hidden safe underground. He tried to open it himself, but ended up calling a locksmith. Inside the safe, he found piles of bricks, a book of coins from 1937, more rare coins in gold and silver, some bricks, a couple of old pistols, and a toolbox full of jewelry. It was a hidden treasure, though not world-changing. Still, the guy was probably happy to find all that stuff. Number 11. Ring found in attic. Most people know the show Antiques Roadshow. It's where people wait in long lines with items they found in attics or sheds. hoping experts will tell them these items are valuable and give them a moment of fame on TV. Usually, people are told politely that their finds, like an Elizabethan chamber pot from the cupboard under the stairs, are just worthless replicas from the 1980s. But sometimes, a real treasure is found. One woman in Wales found a strange and creepy object in her attic, a silver ring with a name and date inscribed on it. The ring had a hinge that opened to reveal a tiny hidden compartment with a lock of braided hair inside. This type of Victorian antique isn't too unusual, as people back then often used hair in keepsakes. However, the Antiques Roadshow expert discovered that the hair belonged to Charlotte Brontë, the famous British author of Jane Eyre. The ring was made and engraved as a remembrance piece after the author's death and was valued at £25,000, mainly because of the hair, not the ring itself. Number 10. Hockey puck find. This old guy named Rye, who was 88 years old, went for a walk in the woods to find a good branch for a cane. That's his job. While he was there, he found something surprising in the mud. At first, he thought it was just junk, like a can. But then he realized it was something he lost when he was a kid, a hockey puck. It even had his initials on it. He hadn't seen it for about 70 years. Sadly, his friends weren't around anymore, so he couldn't tell them the story or play hockey with them. Instead, he shared the story online. Number 9. Motorbikes. Lawrence of Arabia was a British person who did many things. He was famous for leading the Arab revolt against the Ottoman Empire during World War. He was a great leader and knew a lot about Arab culture. His actions helped make the Ottoman Empire lose control in the Arabian Peninsula, and independent Arab countries were formed. Lawrence liked riding motorcycles, especially the Superior 100. He had a few of them. One of his motorcycles, called George V, was in a crash that caused his death. Recently, a bunch of these motorcycles were found in a barn in Cornwall, UK. People had heard stories about these motorcycles, but thought they were just legends. But they were real. Someone had hidden them away for more than 50 years. Number 8. Abandoned mansion. This is a very old empty house. Someone on the internet said it might have belonged to Betty White. Betty White was a famous American actress and TV star. She was known for being funny, charming, and for working in the entertainment industry for a long time. She started her career in the late 1930s and was in shows like The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Golden Girls, where she played Rose Newland. She won many awards during her career, including multiple Emmys. She also cared a lot about animals. She died on December 31st, 2021, when she was 99 years old. This old house was said to have been Betty White's at some point, but who knows if that's true. It seems she left it in the 1990s, and then it caught fire in the 2010s when someone else was living there. Now, it's just falling apart, but since we don't know where it is or what really happened to it, and we're not even sure Betty White had anything to do with it, do we even care about this story? Probably not. Let's just move on. Number 7. Treasure chest in Rocky Mountains. There's a story about a rich guy named Forrest Fenn who hid gold in the Rocky Mountains. He wrote a poem in his book to give clues about where the gold is. A man named Jonathan Jack found it, but some people think he cheated by hacking emails and texts. Jonathan says he didn't use GPS to find it. People argue about whether it's fair to do whatever it takes to find treasure. Number 6. Bronze Age sword. Here's a really shiny sword from a long time ago. It was found in Germany, buried in the ground for 3,000 years. Even though it was buried for so long, it still looks almost new. It was found in a grave with 3 people from the Bronze Age. But here's a question. When is it okay to dig up old graves for history? Let's talk about it in the comments. Number 5. Nintendo game. Some old video games can be worth a lot of money, especially if they're in really good condition. This is a big deal for people who love games and collect them. They're super interested in certain games, especially if they're rare and hardly ever found in brand new condition. Imagine finding an unopened video game in the attic of your old house. That's what happened to a man named Scott Amos. He found a game called Kid Icarus, still in its shopping bag from 1988. No one had ever played it, which made it super valuable to collectors. Kid Icarus is an old game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's about a young hero named Pit who has to save a goddess and defeat a bad goddess named Medusa. He fights with weapons like bows, arrows, hammers, and spells. The game has tough levels like the Underworld and Sky Passes, where you can find power-ups and fight big bosses. People love Kid Icarus for its fun gameplay, characters, and music. Even though it didn't sell well at first, it gained lots of fans over time. There were even more games made after it. Scott found a price tag on his game showing it cost $384 in 1988. That was a lot of money back then. But when he sold it at an auction in 2019, it went for a crazy $99,000. That's unbelievable. Number 4. Doorstop turns out to be sculpture. Imagine you have lots of really old, valuable things lying around your house. It's hard to keep track of them all. Then, one day, you find out that something you've been using to hold your door open is actually a famous sculpture. It's not your fault for not knowing. This happened to someone who found out their heavy stone doorstop was actually made by a well-known artist named Edmond Bardin. Bardin was French and made sculptures that showed mythical stories. His work is in museums all over the world, and he's admired for being a great sculptor and apparently a good doorstop maker too. Number 3. A famous portrait. There was a famous picture found in an old apartment in Paris. It was like stepping into a very old place, like a tomb or a fairy tale. The apartment belonged to a lady named Madame Durian. She locked it in 1939 because of the war and moved away. She never came back, even though she kept paying rent every month. After she died at 91, her heirs went into the apartment and found it frozen in time. It was full of dust, cobwebs, and valuable old things. They found a painting by a famous artist named Giovanni Baldini, along with love letters he wrote to Madame Durian's grandmother. The painting caused a big stir in the art world and sold for $3 million at an auction. Number 2. Buried treasure in backyard. In 2018, a couple from Staten Island, New York, discovered a box of strange things in their backyard. It's like treasure because it had a lot of money in wet $100 bills, plus bags of diamonds, jade, and other valuable stones. But it wasn't just random treasure with no owner. It seemed suspicious. There was a note suggesting it might belong to a nearby neighbor. So the couple asked the neighbor if they had ever been robbed. Turns out, about 7 years earlier, the neighbor's safe was stolen, and it had the same stuff inside. Quite strange, right? The neighbors were happy to get their things back, and the couple went back to their normal lives. But they also made some money by selling the story to tabloids. Not the most exciting tale. Number 1. Trapdoor attic of antiques. A man bought a house in a small town called Geneva in upstate New York. When he explored the attic, he found a surprise. There was a secret trapdoor leading to it. Inside, instead of just junk, he found a bunch of old things. But these old things turned out to be valuable. They were from a photography studio from the early 20th century. Among them were many old photos, including ones of early women's rights activists like Susan B. Anthony. There were also glass negatives, old prints, and lots of old photography equipment. It was quite a discovery. What surprises you the most from this story? Have you ever found hidden treasure or something really strange? Share your stories in the comments below. And don't forget to check out other interesting things on the screen. See you next time.